All right, Avenger fans, welcome back to another episode of Assemble. My name is High Ruler, and today we have the special guest I've been teasing for the last few videos. You guys know him as Miller on Twitter, who is the prominent kind of community figure that kind of does things better than Square Enix. Sorry, guys, don't sue me for that one. Miller, how's it going?
I'm doing great. How are you?
Oh, not too bad, not too bad. So, I'd love to give you like just the opportunity to kind of, for people who may not know you, just kind of give you the opportunity to say like, "Hey guys, how's it going? I'm Miller. This is what I do." Yeah, so feel free.
Sure. Yeah, so my name is Miller Ross. I've sort of weaseled my way into the community, and everybody's been really warm to me this past month. I was kind of a figurehead in the Discord, the community Discord, for a long time, just kind of keeping up with everything going on pre-release. And then post-launch, I found some of the coverage was really odd. Even a couple weeks into the game, the big YouTubers really didn't seem to have a grasp on what I thought was fundamental aspects of the game. And so I, just to kind of clear the record, figured I'd start a Twitter and put my voice out there. Some of the things I was saying in Discord were getting misquoted around. And yeah, I just figured I'd set the record straight. And 5,000 followers later, a bunch of shout outs now from people on the payroll. It's been crazy. And so I'm really happy to be here today and take another step forward and getting to know everybody and saying hi to the community. So
Wonderful.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course. No, thanks for coming on. I know Paul Tassi in Forbes has kind of quoted you a few times in his articles. Like I've been pretty keen on reading his stuff, and I know he's referenced you quite a bit. So you get around.
Yeah, that's been a big honor.
Yeah, you know what? Like a lot of his Destiny coverage is like fundamental to like me keeping up with the game. And then when he started covering Avengers and then quotes you, I'm like, wow, like it's kind of cool seeing like that kind of stuff happen, right? I can only imagine like how cool it is for you to see something like that happen for like yourself, right?
I had shout outs from everywhere now. We've got this covered, shouted me out last week.
Oh wow.
Yeah, different people in the community have been so warm to me. So it's been just a roller coaster.
Well, yeah, like I've said, guys, if you guys don't follow Miller, that's we'll kind of shout him out at the end of the show as well. But it's Miller with 8 M's. Yep, 8 M's. Definitely one of the best people to follow if you're a big fan of Avengers, and I would imagine if you're watching this, you probably are a big fan of Avengers. So, kind of what we're gonna do today is for people who don't know and the people who do know, the big State of the Game update blog has been released, and there are some kind of doozies in this one for sure. So what I think the plan is going to be is we're just going to go not bullet point, but like the big headings, and we'll just kind of talk about them and kind of gauge where everything is. So obviously the first one that we have here is showing our appreciation. The kind of thank you, I guess, for sticking with us kind of thing. What do you think about kind of their little freebie gift for the community and kind of, I guess that's like them saying sorry, right? Is that kind of how you took it?
Well, definitely. I mean, with the live stream that happened today, it seems a little bit like, and I say this with love, but kind of like the apology tour.
Yes.
Like getting out there and saying like, we get it. There's been issues, but the warmth that the heavier names in the fandom have shown them have gone a long way.
Right.
And so they really just wanted to echo that as best they could and give an olive branch themselves. And I think it's kind of cool. One thing that I find was really funny though, I don't know if this was just the mobile version, but the graphic that they had for showing our appreciation was different. They had a bunch of placeholder graphics.
Oh, really?
For the credits and the units. And even the DNA key was a somewhat older version. The Rick Stalder ArtStation images that he showed off.
Right.
With some of those really early graphics. Those were the ones in that image. It's something that I think it's kind of an elephant in the room with the game, is that there's a real disconnect between lingo that the devs had used throughout development and the final approved by Marvel versions of that same jargon. And now seeing that reflected in images as well, with the devs pushing out images from earlier in development, I think it really just goes to show that there is there is work to be done in terms of streamlining um, the jargon used in blogs like these, as well as throughout the community. I mean, I don't know the number of times I've heard people say boss layers, which now we're still not quite sure what they are,
Right.
in place of villain sectors and cloning lab and aim secret lab. There seems to be two different words for everything, and it can get a little confusing.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think even I've been a very vocal critic of like the blog post in general, even like the lack of kind of attention to detail, I guess, like spelling, grammar errors, kind of everything to do with when I read a blog post has been kind of like, I know sometimes I'll even read something and I have to like go over it two or three times just because I'm like, wait, what did that say? And it just I don't want to like harp on them or say anything, but it's just like I think you're right. There needs to be like a more streamlined process when it comes to kind of getting information out there in both the content and the way like the content is then presented to the community at large. One of the things
hearing now about the time it takes between writing a blog post and it actually getting out and it going through that approvals process, it does kind of surprise me that so much slips through the cracks.
Well,
considering how many people touch these blog posts before they get public.
Well, so was that covered in the stream? So in full transparency, I actually didn't see the stream today, so I'm kind of playing catch up a little bit.
Well, it actually wasn't.
Okay.
Back in just after launch, when they were working on the gear clarification, Phil jumped on a stream. I want to say it was with RX Gaming.
Yes.
And and he mentioned that the blog is written. It's just got to go through the approvals process. And we didn't see it for, I think, a week after that. And the impression that, I mean, now we've seen it 3 weeks in a row where the blog is a little delayed after the weekly reset.
Yes.
With it stretching into Friday last week. Like, that's not them still writing it. It's written. It's just a matter of it going through that approvals process.
Right. With famously last week where it says "Happy Thursday, Marvel fans." Right. I remember that one. Yeah. I was just
that's a little infamous.
I was a little salty at that. Let me tell you, I was just a little salty. Well, yeah, that's interesting because I remember. Did you ever play Marvel Heroes at all?
I didn't.
Okay.
Well, that's not true. I did play a little bit, but I was super casual, and let me tell you, I jumped on that ship late.
Right. Well, yeah, you did. The early days of Marvel Heroes were fantastic. One of the things that I remember very well from Gazillion actually was they were very transparent with the approval process of Marvel and how strict Marvel was. So, kind of to double back on that, it's very surprising that some of the stuff does slip through when Marvel historically is very, very, very hands-on and very in depth with kind of everything that they look over and approve and reject and everything like that. So it's
I got to imagine that's kind of like just a consequence of work from home and,
yes.
and everybody being kind of at their wits' end. I mean, in this blog post, they'll go on to say some of the issues that they faced.
Right. True. Fair enough. All right, so let's kind of jump down to future fan feedback driven features. So let's kind of just go to bullet points here. The Avengers Initiative ping system, a system that will allow players to mark objectives, resources, health, crates, and enemies, allowing players to command AI companions to hack/smash doors or prioritize specific enemies. Reassemble campaign replay, an option to reset the reassemble campaign and replay it with your superhero's level and gear tag. So I imagine that's a new gear plus kind of feature, correct? So
that does seem to be like a new game plus play on the campaign, which frankly seems like a no-brainer. I mean, they put so much resources into the campaign. There's unique maps, unique bosses that we just can't touch again. And in the Avengers Initiative, it really is all about replaying content. So it seems like there's a lot just kind of left on the vine there.
Now let me ask you about that. Do you ever think we'll see MODOK as a villain sector from the campaign, or do you think if we ever do, that would be modified?
I can't imagine there won't be.
Okay.
You said you didn't see the stream.
Yeah, I didn't see it today.
Was that? Oh, I mean, you didn't. It was, kind of fluffy. They said it was like an episode 0, so to speak, of I was about to say weekly. They want to do it weekly.
Right.
There's still conversations about how often they can do it. But one of the things they said explicitly was that when you're working on something that's new, it takes obviously a lot longer to push out, whereas a variant of existing content is a lot easier to get out there. So they're pushing the variants through so that they can have consistent content releases versus a large gap between new content.
Okay.
And so when you think about a new game plus and replaying like the MODOK boss fight, I can't imagine that isn't something they won't push through. It's of all the bosses, it was my favorite boss fight.
Yep.
Certainly the most over the top.
I was gonna say it was the most unique fight in the game, I imagine. Like for a lot of people, like even for me, like going through the different kind of phases and playing with all the different Avengers in the end there, like it was a very unique experience that hasn't kind of been replicated anywhere else within the game. And not being able to go back and play that is, yeah, once again, you're leaving stuff on the table that you could theoretically reuse and
so
make use of.
I can't imagine it being too far out. That seems like exactly the kind of thing they would want out in the next month or two.
Right. Okay, cool. All right, so next is high contrast mode, which is an accessibility feature that will allow the player to apply solid darkened veils behind text to improve readability. Okay. Hero icon visibility, an option to adjust the display of identifying icons above a superhero's head to be on by default or dynamic. That's a pretty good one, I think. Like, there's so many times where like I feel like I'm hitting the up button on my controller just to keep track of where my teammates are, because they just kind of wander off and they do their own thing, and I'm just having to either wait for them or follow them around the whole map for 20 minutes. And I'm just kind of like...
I mean, as someone who plays as Kamala now with Tachyon Rift missions out and health draining rapidly, Kamala's support heroic is an area of effect. It does have a hard radius limit. So allies have to be a specific distance from your character to be able to heal them. And so I find myself really struggling to keep close enough to my allies in those missions to make to keep them healed.
Right. Yeah, I guess that would be a very frustrating experience for you. I think I'd throw my controller.
More frustrating for them because they're the ones
who die. That's true enough. And then as usual with support players, you guys get all the blame when you're trying to do the right thing, right?
Yep.
There it is. There it is. I knew my time in League of Legends was gonna mean something somewhere. And it was very little time, let's just be clear. Mission reward clarity. Improved clarity around mission-specific rewards when viewed on the war table. This will allow players to move strategically, or more strategically take on missions to meet their current goals and seek out specific gear and resources. I guess that's good in the sense that it's almost like, have you played the Division 2 at all?
I did play a little bit of Division 1. I have not clocked any time in Division 2.
Okay, so it sounds like they're taking this a little bit from Division 2, where Division 2 has kind of set rewards for different missions that kind of rotate daily. It seems like they're kind of taking that idea and kind of modifying it to fit in with this. So like people know if I'm going to run, this mission or this war zone or, this drop zone, I'm going to get this kind of gear, which I mean, it kind of...
Well, I was going to say, if you've paid any attention to the guys over at Assembler's World, they're the ones who were doing that big gear spreadsheet.
Right, yep.
There are specific named legendary sets for each character.
Right.
And when the community was kind of uncovering that, it didn't seem like that was something the devs were too intent to talk about. Whereas in the stream today, they were talking specifically about the Storm set, which is a named legendary set with perks focused around Tachyon missions.
Interesting.
And so the way I interpreted the mission reward clarity system, it's just a little more transparency in terms of, as opposed to guaranteed legendary from a vault mission.
Right.
It would specify, the vault named legendary set or whatever jargon they end up coming up with to define that.
I guess the main takeaway from it is like more transparency, the better, I guess, right? Like if people know what they're going in and looking to get, then it kind of just makes it a more improved experience than kind of just going in and being like, oh, I got this. Well, I don't need it. Thanks for wasting 5, 10, 20 minutes of my time. Chuck it. You know what I mean? So I think for the most part, when it comes to these looter games, I think the more transparency is the better, at least for me personally. I'm sure there's some people out there who kind of like the roll of the dice and, oh, do I get what I need or do I not get what I need? But I know for me.
Well, going back to like the gear clarification that they had, people weren't aware frankly, of a lot of the intricacies of what dropped where,
Right.
how often. That was the first time we'd even heard that the Elite Heroic Hive had an increased chance the first time you do it a week.
Right. Right.
And I think that, I mean, it shouldn't have surprised them, but I think from my perspective, it surprised me how much of a disconnect there was between what people knew and the reality of the game itself. So just putting more information out there for players,
Well, it's actually
that should go a long way.
Well, yeah, it's actually funny you mentioned that, because if I'm remembering correctly, the difference between the blog from yesterday and the patch notes specify that 2 exotics drop from the Mega Hive now, but the weekly blog, if I remember correctly, doesn't specify that. So I think it comes down to like that communication again is still kind of murky. But I would imagine
it's difficult.
Yeah, but I would imagine as long as
there's so many hoops to jump through to get that kind of information out there.
Right.
That well, I know I think it was I want to say the weekly news in game. But I know I fished something out that it was the weekly challenges. Yeah, the weekly challenges. There's like I want to say there was like 3 weeks worth already lined up at launch.
Right.
And I imagine that's just get them approved, get them ready, they're good to go, you hit the button.
Yep.
Because every time we see a big fan push for a clarification in something, there is, even if the devs are very excited about getting that information out there, a long process to go through to actually make that happen.
Right.
So I imagine the blog posts, frankly, are kind of form letters, so to speak. Like they have specific notes that they have to hit, and then it's just a matter of getting a quick approval for them and push, get it out.
Yep, exactly. No, I agree 100%. It's a very stark contrast between like This Week at Bungie and the War Table blog. Like This Week at Bungie feels like a very organic kind of new read every week versus this, where it's very formulative. Like you kind of know what you're getting week in, week out, for example. So no, I 100% agree with you in kind of, you know, hit the notes when you can. Don't try and stray too far, and just get them out as quick as possible.
Yeah, it does seem like the devs' hands are tied.
Yeah, for sure.
Across the board.
Yeah, 100%. I guess that's kind of the devil you play with when you play with such a big brand, right? I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so off-screen and ranged enemy attack indicators. Better feedback for players to avoid off-screen and ranged enemy attacks. I guess that's one of a nice little quality of life features, because I feel like I see a lot of people talk about that on the subreddit. I don't know if you come across a lot of those comments, but it feels like a lot of people were pushing for a change like that, just because it seems like there's big vocal feedback on, you know, kind of you get hit from like an enemy like off screen, 1,000 yards away, sniper, and you don't know how to react to it. You can't react fast enough. So at least for me, this feels like a really good kind of change that they're going to be implementing here. I don't know.
Well, yeah, I mean, with this sort of. Wow, I'm totally blanking.
No, it's okay. It's okay.
You can tell this is not my job. I am a fan. But no, with this bullet point being future fan feedback driven features,
right?
These specific features really do reflect the most vocal requests from the community that are achievable, you know, within a specific amount of time.
Yes.
And even in the stream today, Phil got sniped really hard by some off-screen shots, and he mentioned clearly, like, you guys must really be enjoying watching this happen, because that's something that we know we need to fix, and here is why.
Yeah, no, that's, you know what, it's always good. I hate referring to other games, but it was for people who know and watched the Destiny stream long time ago, when I believe it was Deej was talking about rewards, and he opened the chest where it was two blue engrams and something else, and like the look on his face was just pure dread. And it's always kind of funny when you kind of see stuff happen to the devs that's happening to you. It's like, oh, like there's vindication. There's like, if it's going to happen to them publicly, then they have to kind of address it, and then they have to kind of make a change, instead of, you know, kind of without kind of them acknowledging it in a live setting. The imagination runs wild of them just kind of ignoring it, right? So I apparently need to go back and watch the stream today. That's on my bucket list.
It's funny. there's definitely an undercurrent every time the devs live stream the game. It's like, please don't crash, please don't crash. Like every black screen, there's just a cold sweat on their foreheads.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that because we're going to talk about the areas of impact now. And as you play PC, I imagine a lot of this right here more applies to you than any of the rest of us, right? Yeah. So let's kind of just dig a little deep into this. So in the past several weeks, we've uncovered and corrected several systemic issues that were creating a number of game crashes or freezes. Through our metrics tracking, we've seen a significant decrease in these crashes week over week. However, on some PCs, we're continuing to see a number of crashes than we'd like, especially those that are the result of GPU hangs and GPU driver crashes. We have a dedicated team tracking these as highest priority fixes across all platforms, including bringing in external partners that help isolate any remaining issues to maximize our stability. We are actively working with Nvidia on specific issues that some users have reported with performance degrading over time. With the latest patch, we've added Nvidia Dlss, which significantly improves frame rate while maintaining high quality visuals for Nvidia RTX hardware. We've also added DLSS support for ultra performance mode and dynamic resolution scaling. More information about Nvidia DLSS can be found here. So, what's your kind of opinion on how PC performance has kind of started at beta and then kind of has tracked now to October 16th?
Well, there's certainly less crashes. Mm-hmm. I couldn't tell you really the intricacies of what's happened in the back end to achieve that. But I know you really didn't have to look far to find reports of somebody saying, why is my CPU performance totally maxed out? I've got this like crazy chip. And
right.
It did seem like there was major optimization issues on Nixus's end. But as far as DLSS in specific goes, that's been a huge, huge boon for anyone with an RTX card. Like, I'm running the game right now at 165 FPS, and it's bananas.
So for people who don't know, what's a DLSS? Because like for myself, who I would like to say I'm computer literate, I'm still not totally in the know of like what DLSS is and what it does to kind of help like the normal computer gamer and everything to do with them.
Okay, well, DLSS right away stands for deep learning super sampling,
mm-hmm.
and it's an Nvidia tech that essentially it's game specific. So you have to, I believe that there's a team at Nvidia that essentially they train an AI to look at the game running at higher resolutions and lower resolutions.
Mm-hmm.
And what it does in layman's terms is essentially it can upscale lower resolution gameplay to a higher resolution in a convincing way, opposed to a simple bicubic upsample that you would get in any image editing program on the market. So what you are doing when you have DLSS enabled is running the game at a lower resolution and upscaling it using that technology. Of course, it's reserved specifically for the RTX line,
right.
Which has specific hardware on board to work on that behind the scenes without impacting performance.
Right.
And so I believe it started with the 2070 and 2080 line, and now they've got the 3080 and the 3070, I think, is in the pipeline. And so they're pretty expensive cards, but for anybody with one, I mean, it's been absolutely night and day.
Wow. Maybe I can actually hit 144. That'd be cool.
It's fantastic. I got to tell you, 165 is just crazy.
Do you have a 165 monitor?
I do. I've got a 144 overclocked right now to 165, and this is the first game I've actually touched it with, and it's great.
All right, after this is done, we're gonna talk about that because I obviously need whatever you got going on in your setup. So, all right, well that's kind of cool. Now, would you know if there's anything for like an AMD user? Do you know if there's like an equivalent for those guys, or is it just this is strictly like an Nvidia tech?
Well, I am an Nvidia guy, but it seems like the team has made a specific effort to be to sort of appeal to both markets.
Mm-hmm.
I know when the game launched, it had that Intel enhanced physics option floating around, and they had the Intel team talk about that in a YouTube video, and then they had that whole promotion with Intel where they were having the branded chips out.
Right.
So, but at the same time, I know I want to say it actually launched with the AMD equivalent. I know there's an AMD setting floating around somewhere.
Okay.
But again, I'm an Intel Nvidia guy. I couldn't tell you exactly.
Fair enough. That's all right.
There's something floating around.
There's something. There's something for everyone.
Well, DLSS tech continues to evolve.
Mm.
DLSS 1 is a fair bit old now. And right now they're pushing DLSS 2.0, and I believe 2.1 is in the pipeline, and they've hinted at, the crazy features that'll come along with that when that launches. I know back in beta when the public data mines were happening, there did seem to be evidence of an existing DLSS solution.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering if this isn't DLSS 1.0, and it was something from early in dev that they kind of shelved and figured, with PC performance being as rough as it was, just push it and get it out there, and everybody that can take advantage of it will see a huge difference. And I can say for myself, I have. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys. Well,
oh god.
You know what? It's funny because as a PS4 guy, and I have an RTX 2070. I may actually have to play the game on my computer now, so that'll be kind of
well. Spider-Man is a ways out, so
that's
you can get the most of it.
I was gonna say Spider-Man. I thought March for Spider-Man, and with kind of.
Oh, I don't think that's happening.
Oh, break my heart more, why don't you?
Yeah. They mentioned. Well, it was asked in the stream today,
mm-hmm.
and the PR guy, whose name escapes me, because I know in a previous stream they'd mentioned their name, but anyways, they'd said no word on Spider-Man. We can't say anything about Spider-Man. And with everything else getting delayed, I have to imagine that's been pushed back as well.
I would imagine out of all the characters that are going to be kind of teased and talked about, I imagine the approval process for anything Spider-Man is like leaps and bounds above everyone else at this point, right? Because just with everything kind of that's swirled around him, I imagine they're going to be very delicate in how they handle any news about that character, let me tell you.
Well, my hope was always that they'd launch him alongside another character, just to give everybody something to do.
Right.
And I was thinking with the characters that have been data mined as closer than others,
mm-hmm.
that the finale of season 1, in air quotes, or the opening of season 2 would be what coincides with Spider-Man. So there's just a lot of content to dig on. And for Sony players, Spider-Man. And that would kind of be the spoonful of sugar that helped that medicine go down.
Well,
but
okay, so
with everything pushed back, I really couldn't say anymore. It's anybody's guess.
So let me ask you one kind of question here before we get back to the state of the game here. With what you know personally, do you feel like these characters? So let me kind of backtrack a little. So from what we know, these characters are coming with character-specific missions, correct? Like,
right.
So
yeah.
So with everything that's going on with Spider-Man, do you feel like there's going to be Spider-Man specific villains and missions that are coming that are only going to be on the PlayStation? So say, for example, now I'm just kind of throwing this out there, but there's a Spider-Man villain that's in the PS4 version. Now, even though Xbox and PC don't get Spider-Man, they wouldn't get the villain either. Do you think that is kind of in the cards as well? Like, how do you think that may all play out?
I think it's impossible to say right now.
Okay.
The work that's been done on Peter Parker is, or at least, what's present in the data as of today is so minimal that there really isn't any way to tell,
right,
from my end, whether or not he'll come with his own unique villain.
Right.
I think it would be great for Sony players, but I think if he does come with his own villain, it's anybody's guess. It's a coin flip, really,
right,
if the villain would go along with that exclusivity.
Okay. All right. Whew. All right. I'm sorry, guys. We don't have any information on that one yet. All right.
I will say, though, before we move on.
Oh, yes, please.
There's still no specific word yet on whether or not Spider-Man is a timed exclusive. And I know that that's a real Pandora's box to say.
Mm-hmm.
People feel very strongly one way or the other. But in instances of timed exclusivity, it is a selling point for the party that benefits from that exclusivity, not to say that it's a timed exclusive.
Right.
If you say it's a timed exclusive, everybody knows that they can just
wait it out.
Whereas right now, I mean, you started playing, on PlayStation specifically because
of Spider-Man.
You can play as Spider-Man.
Yep.
But that might be more of a question mark for you if you know it's a timed exclusivity.
Well, I mean, the thing is like I played on. Oh God, I started playing on PlayStation for the next gen upgrade and Spider-Man, and as we're gonna find out, I'm screwed. So let's just keep on going to find out how screwed I'm getting. So, multiplayer matchmaking. We made some meaningful improvements to the multiplayer matchmaking system since launch, including expanding power level matching speed so a broader range of diverse players can connect faster. Moving forward, our philosophy for multiplayer improvements is to rework the way we group players. The goal is to draw from a larger pool of online players and provide faster ways to jump into desired content. This will help with quicker matchmaking so you can get to run to the fun faster. We're also exploring ways to better make use of the quick match feature with greater rewards for joining in to help others out. Stay tuned. So, kind of what I would love to see, and I'd love to get your input on this, is I would love to see them rework war tables in general. Like, I always kind of compare the like Avengers to other games, but I always feel like the way Destiny does things is just kind of better. I'd love to kind of see like a drop zone playlist, or like, you know, just everything kind of laid out in a playlist section, so you can just like click a playlist and you can be dropped into like one of 5 missions and it just cues you for that or something like that. Just I always like the way of like simplicity more than kind of breaking things up individually, because then it just feels like you're matching with a smaller group of players. I don't know how you feel about that though.
Well, I think a playlist feature makes sense. If you're not doing your dailies or your weeklies, it's really anybody's guess what you would do. You know, everybody has their own opinion about what gives the best loot.
Right.
Like, I want this set, I want that set, I want to go here, I want to go there. And to have a more of a streamlined system in play to just jump into the kind of dynamic content that you would approach in a multiplayer environment. Yeah, it makes sense. What I find really interesting, though, is them mentioning rewards for joining in to help others out.
Yes.
Like a drop-in, drop-out system would go a long way.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because I feel like that's one of the things they should kind of implement, right? Say I start queuing with one other person, you know, I feel like 2 other people should have the ability to kind of join in on us to kind of help us out, right? It just, to me, that makes sense. I don't know the networking side behind it, but as a player, I always feel like stuff like that just kind of makes sense for a multiplayer game. Let people drop in, let people drop out, you know, and reward the people that do kind of drop in. Say, you know, give them a notification on screen like this mission is ongoing. And then if they hit yes and we complete it, they get an extra kind of reward for kind of joining in late. But I mean, like I said,
that does seem to be what they're implying.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I'm curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah. I mean, hopefully, like I said, anything that kind of encourages multiplayer and kind of condenses it to make it more easy is 100% something I'm looking forward to. So hopefully. So rewards. We now know how important meaningful rewards are to our fans. Our philosophy is that rewards should always feel worth the time you've invested to earn them. The upcoming AIM cloning lab will guarantee an exotic drop for the first completion per week, and a notable chance of exotic drops for subsequent runs. You should also feel that exotic drops are more unique to late game play. Tachyon and future AIM cloning lab missions draw from special reward pools. When you do get exotics from these late game activities, they will also feel more significant with reworked attributes and perks. Reward tuning will be an ongoing pursuit to ensure we hit the sweet spot with players, and we commit to transparency through patch notes when changes are made. I mean, when I read this, the first sentence kind of jumps out at me. We now know how important meaningful rewards are to our fans.
We know how important.
Oh, we know how. Okay, we know how. Sorry,
that's a Freudian slip.
I added a word there. You're right. I've seen so many of these comments from developers that I added a word there. Okay, never mind. Whew, God, I got scared there for a moment. I was about to go on a tangent.
Well, I think you were
mile wide.
Right. I mean, it does seem like their philosophy has shifted a little bit this past week.
Yeah, it definitely seems like, you know, when I saw that the Mega Hive, for example, was kind of changed to allow 2 exotic drops per completion run, that to me is like they're trying to give people the loot that they want, right? Like reward the time players are spending. You know, I've been a very big critic of the Mega Hive, and you know, now that there's 2 exotics at the end of it, it makes those runs feel like, okay, they're worth something now, right?
Right.
Whereas before, I would complete it, and I know there was that one night where I had to rush it to get it done, and I didn't finish till like 6:30, and I completed it at 6:30 in the morning for people who I may have just thought that I meant 6:30 at night, and they're probably like wondering 6:30 at night's a perfect time to do it. No, it's 6:30 in the morning, and I completed it, and I got nothing, and I felt so defeated. I like literally I like sat in my chair, and I think I just remember saying, "Wow, that sucks." But if I got 2 exotics out of that, I'm like, wow, that you know what? 6:30 a.m. I got to go to bed, but I feel accomplished. I feel like I got something out of my time, right?
Well, you're talking to somebody who's finished 27 Elite Heroic Hives right now and has never gotten a single exotic from one.
my heart's bleeding for you. Let me tell you, my heart is.
Yeah, so I feel your pain there,
Yes,
but
yes.
yeah, the Mega Hive is definitely ripe these days for sure.
So
The
mhm.
Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry, I was gonna ask you with the AIM cloning labs in particular. Did they talk about when that's gonna start on the stream today?
In fact, no.
Okay.
Later on in this blog is the closest they get to that.
Okay, perfect. Sorry, and I want you to continue off what you're saying. I did cut you off there. Sorry about that.
No, well, I was just gonna say, in terms of those guaranteed exotics, and where was it? It said specific pools.
Yes,
from special reward pools.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
So it does seem like each of those exotics is drawing from a different name set.
Right.
With the second being the Hive set, which I think has a different name for every character. I know the Thor version is the Hive Mind.
Right.
But yeah, whereas the other set is the one that was dropping with it randomly. The shout out to the guys at Assemblers World. They've really done a great job keeping track of everything and uniting the community.
Oh, for sure,
if I just head over to the spreadsheet right now, it was because there are 3 named sets that were dropping with Elite Hives, Elite Vaults, and Elite Villain
Do you just
sectors, respectively.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you out. Do you want to send that to me so I can pull it up on screen, just so?
Yeah, sure.
Please and thank you.
There you go.
All right, perfect.
I think that actually might be outdated now. They might have shifted to a different spreadsheet or maybe moved it to the website. But they've struggled to keep up with the community, frankly, because there's people just dumping screenshots on them.
Right, right. All right.
But yeah, so if you check that out, there are specific named legendary sets that were dropping at the Elite Hive, Elite Vault, and Elite Villain Sector, respectively.
Right.
And then there were exotic variants of those. And the design philosophy in the beginning was that the legendary versions would have 2 perks, and the exotic would have a 3rd perk exclusive to the exotic variant. And there was that glitch. There was those screenshots going around specifically of, I think it was Black Widow's Red Room Cord.
Yes.
And they had the legendary version with 3 perks and the exotic with those same 3 perks, but a lower stat roll. And so the community was looking at that and obviously thinking, why would I bother grinding for exotics?
Right.
But even the way it was intended to work with just a 3rd perk exclusive to the exotic variant, it is kind of unimpressive. There's not really that much more to it. It's pretty obvious.
Yep.
And so when the weekly priorities were pushing out their own 3 sets, I'm going down to the Miss Marvel versions. They were the Aegis, Storm, and Hive Mind sets. And the Storm set was focused on Tachyon perks. The Hive Mind set was focused on Cloning Lab perks. And the Aegis set, if I pull one up quick. Okay, I never remember the Aegis set. Oh, the Aegis set was the Cloning Lab perks.
Sorry, so where are you seeing this? You're seeing this in the Miss Marvel tab, correct?
Yeah.
Yes.
The Aegis set, the Storm set, and the Hive Mind set underneath the priority mission tab there.
Oh, perfect. Yeah, yes. Sorry. Yes.
Yeah, the Storm set was focused on Tachyon Rift mission related perks.
Yep.
There's ones that are like during a Tachyon storm, you get an increased damage boost or increased proc chances on other gear perks, which is incredible.
Yep.
And then the Aegis set was like increased damage when on a cloning lab mission.
Right. Yep.
And those had been dropping since launch. And we'll get to this a little later, but those 3 also had you could get cosmic damage on them.
Yes.
And they were the only gear that you could. And I was really lucky actually and got an Armlets of the Storm that had cosmic damage, which I've been running ever since. But yeah, those always had 3 perks.
Right.
And even after they fixed the glitch that was giving named legendaries 3 perks, those continued to have 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so for a long time, I was unsure if there would even be exotic variants of those. And then now with 1.3.3, there are exotic variants of those dropping in the Tachyon missions.
Right.
And those have 3 perks, but now they have unique perks. So it does seem like the philosophy behind what makes named legendaries and their exotic variants special has changed once again, and frankly for the better. I'm quite pleased with where they've now found themselves in that regard.
Yep. Well,
Yeah, it's been a big boom.
Well, it's funny you say that, because it always feels like, with these games, they always find themselves in a stumbling block trying to figure out loot. And it's good that they kind of found themselves kind of where they want to be and where they want to grow to kind of earlier than most, because if we're being honest, like, these games live and die off loot, to a degree, but it's good that we're not waiting for like a year 2 or a season 2 for like big loot changes, because it always feels like with these games it always does take a while, but it like I said, it's good that they found their way, because it definitely helps the player base, and it kind of helps the player base realize that there are sort of like rewards for these activities. You just kind of have to go and get them, right? Right. Exactly. So for us as fans, as players, like, the changes that they're making definitely seem to be enticing players to kind of play the content, to get involved, and kind of to get the loot that's going to be to really good. It's funny you mentioned the cosmic gear though, because I know they can't really acknowledge, or well, I say can't, but for them to acknowledge that cosmic gear has been dropping since launch, when I read that, I believe in the patch notes or the weekly blog, I was like, yeah, maybe officially it's going to start now, but I'm pretty sure since launch, people have been asking, what is this cosmic perk? What is this cosmic perk? And people have been like, oh, wait and see, like, but
yeah, that's one of those things where there's really a disconnect between what's happening and the community.
Yep.
I mean, you still see on the subreddit people saying, I just got a cosmic perk, is this new?
Yep.
Or right after that last patch, there were people saying, I just got gear with a cloning lab perk, it must be coming now, it's got to be this weekend.
Right.
And it's kind of heartbreaking to tell them, no, those perks have been in since launch.
Yeah, well, yeah, and
Yeah.
it's definitely one of those things where it feels like the community has to kind of educate the community, where with a lot of things, it's like, oh, the developers are going to kind of tell you or show you, but for Avengers, it's been like, oh, well, actually, I'm going to go to the community, because I'm going to get an answer quicker, faster, and more clear from the community than I would from an official representative, unfortunately. Which, I mean, it is the way it is sometimes, right? Like, sometimes that's just the way the cookie crumbles, I guess.
I do kind of feel for the devs.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
When you make a games as a service, or specifically like a looter games as a service, you got to kind of keep the community one step behind.
Yes.
The hot new content. And to have everything pushed back, you've got to kind of scramble to get something for them to keep striving for in the meantime.
Yep.
Or those 1,000 and change PC players that you have
don't
last.
Yes.
They hit 150 on every character, they get the gear they want, they're gone.
Well,
and go ahead.
No, I was gonna say it's good that you say that, because one of the things I want to talk about next is not just the Mega Hive, but the Tachyon missions and Shield Substation Zero. Because to me, this is like their way of kind of giving us something. And, I would kind of love to hear a little bit about what you thought of, one, the new social space itself, but, obviously, and then the Tachyon missions and kind of what you thought of them from, kind of a gameplay perspective, and kind of as like as someone who kind of knows a little bit more than the common player, kind of what you think about the introduction of them and how they've been, and kind of the implementation of them. So yeah, I would love to know kind of what your thoughts are them before I kind of go on my lovely talking spree.
Well, we're just getting to that now.
Yes.
In the blog.
Yes.
So you can go ahead and do late game content if you'd like, and then we'll pick that up.
Perfect. So launch was only the beginning for Marvel's Avengers. We have both refinements to existing content and sweeping additions coming that will introduce new mission types, characters, regions, and even higher global stakes. Mega Hive. To support our late game players, we recently dropped the Mega Hive. Mega Hives are a weekly mission type for fans who prefer to fly solo, testing their top tier roster in a gauntlet of descending floors with increasingly difficult enemies. We've heard loud and clear that players want a multiplayer option for the Mega Hive, and that is something we are working towards in the coming months. Tachyon missions and Shield Substation Zero. A new outpost, Shield Substation Zero, dropped this week in the Pacific Northwest. Shield is investigating new temporal anomalies that have begun forming across the world and need the Avengers' help. Visit this space and meet new characters and activate new rituals. So, yeah, break it down. What do you think?
Well, I've had a long time to kind of digest specifically what was in the Substation Zero update.
Mm-hmm.
And so I wasn't surprised to see it so light on content. I'd kind of tweeted about that in advance.
Mm-hmm.
You know, temper your expectations.
Yes,
it's not
yes.
quite to the size of Taking Aim and Future Imperfect, and certainly not Black Panther's Operation.
Yes.
But yeah, it was always something small. It was always something light. But what surprised me really was, and I tweeted about this, the steps. Well, okay, back in the, I think it was the July War Table, they showed off, or no, it couldn't have been the July War Table. It must have been the launch War Table, yes. They showed off the Substation Zero operation from within the operations screen on the War Table. And when it launched, there was no operation. It was just a mission chain.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm kind of glad they did that, because to have it sort of stand alongside the campaign and Taking Aim when it's so small is kind of a worrying sign for anyone excited for Taking Aim or Future Imperfect.
Mm-hmm.
And so I am really glad they didn't end up doing that. And now with Cloning Lab, they end up mentioning, well, I'll get on that later, but yeah, they did kind of pare back the pomp and circumstance surrounding Substation Zero, and that was for the best. I don't think the reaction would have been, frankly, as mild as it was if it had launched as a legit operation with 4 steps.
Yeah. No, you know, and you know what? Because a lot of the community, I almost want to feel like the community is divided on this. People were saying, "Oh, this is great. This is a good step forward," and everyone was just kind of talking about, "Well, this is like almost nothing, right?" And as I said earlier, I was kind of like a pessimist, and for me personally, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are when you actually played the new Tachyon Rifts, because when I played the Tachyon Rifts, I was like, this is not the greatest out there. Obviously it
really is just a new variant of existing mission types.
Yeah, it almost feels like, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I was just gonna say, it almost feels like they could just be modifiers and like weekly kind of changes. I almost want to say that instead of kind of making them their own thing, but I'm not sure how that would work overall.
Well, I think they are, frankly, outside of the new icon on the War Table.
Right.
I mean, it really does sort of just specify that these have those modifiers, because if you launch one of the Tachyon missions, you will see those objectives are simply tied to modifiers.
Right. Well, would you like to see kind of the Tachyon Storms kind of get introduced to more missions and kind of like, you know, as like the modifiers change weekly? Would you kind of like to see that kind of get added to different missions per week, or do you want to keep, you know, the Tachyon missions like their own separate thing as they are standing?
Well, I hesitate to say either way.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that either way is, you know, the cure-all that the community is looking for.
Right.
I think it's just not the meatiest content at its heart, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think really the worst part about the Substation Zero update is that everything else was delayed, and that this kind of has to stand on its own for as long as it does.
Right.
Because that was never the intention. Just based on what they were saying pre-launch, it does seem like this was going to be a mid to late September thing.
Right.
And if you can imagine, you know, where the community was at that point, it would have gone over a lot better.
Oh yeah, for sure. I guess that's just the unfortunate consequence of the amount of bug fixing they've had to do, and unfortunately, when your workforce is squashing bugs, there's not much content to be pushed and approved and patched. And
on top of that, it's work from home. It's everything that's come along with the past 9 months of our lives that have just
complicated,
sort of set the world on fire.
Yeah. Well, that's a better way to put it. I say complicated, you set the world on fire. It's probably a more apt description, I would say.
Glass half full versus half empty.
Yeah, I guess that's the best way to put it, for sure. All right. So
I will say before we move on.
Yeah, of course.
I do find Tachyon missions quite challenging.
Mm-hmm.
It really surprised me how challenging I found them as someone who jumped into it with a level 150 hero. Um, it's it's not, as grand as people were hoping for, but as, a new daily, yeah, I'll take it.
So let me ask you then: did you play it solo or with people?
Well, the story one I played solo.
Right.
But as far as I know, the dailies you have to do in a
Oh, you
team
have
of
to
two
do
and up,
team of
don't
two.
you?
Yes, you're correct. So do you find
Yeah.
so actually that makes my question a lot easier. Do you find that they're difficult because of the people you are playing with, or do you find it's difficult because of the mechanics of the Tachyon storms?
I'd say a little bit of both.
Okay.
The one I played solo, I found challenging specifically for what it was.
Mm-hmm.
And then I jumped on with Gollum, one of the YouTubers that does a lot of Marvel's Avengers content, and we did the daily. And a third person randomly jumped in through matchmaking,
Right.
and he was a bit of an anchor. He did not know what he was doing, and that
Right.
did make it considerably challenging.
So with that being said, with kind of the way, when you're matchmaking, you never know who you're going to be matched with. Would you like to see the timer kind of able to be inflated past the minute, or do you think having it just kind of strictly to the minute max is a good thing for these missions?
Full disclosure, I haven't done today's daily.
Okay.
Which I've heard is a lot more indoors focused, and,
Okay.
and that can create some challenges with Tachyon Rift spawning.
Yes.
But as far as yesterday's daily and then the one that presents itself through the story, I thought the timer was okay.
Okay.
Obviously, it's a challenge, but I think moving forward, depending on the missions that they introduce for the dailies, yeah, that could create a problem.
Mm-hmm.
But as far as I can tell, no, I'm okay with it.
You're okay with it? Okay. Interesting. All right. So, with that being said, let's jump into Omega level threats. In the next few weeks, we'll introduce a new mission classification to Marvel's Avengers, Omega level threats. Missions under the Omega level threat umbrella are multiplayer focused challenges that are tuned for high end players and offer special late game rewards. Skill and coordination with your team will be key to overcoming these missions, including the Avengers' worthy fight at the finale. Omega level threats are a first step towards an even more exciting and challenging late game content. Many in our community have asked if Omega level threats are Marvel's Avengers equivalent to raids. Though focused on multiplayer and designed to be extremely challenging, Omega level threats represent our first step in escalating the challenge your superheroes face. As the Avengers initiative narrative continues to unfold, the stakes will get higher and the challenges harder. The first Omega level threat is the AIM Cloning Lab, which requires advanced tactics and full cooperation of a seasoned 4-player team to beat the high power level challenge. The lab culminates in a massive fight that is influenced by how you performed in the penultimate. Did I say that correct? Objective.
You did.
Wow. What a word. What a word.
Penultimate is like second from last.
Unbelievable. I'm learning things. We're not going to spoil the surprise for you. The AIM Cloning Lab must be completed between 10 a.m. PDT Friday and 10 a.m. PDT Monday. While it can be replayed like other late game content, it has better rewards for the first completion. So one of the things that jumped out to me in this is that they say, let me just highlight it here for myself. Many in our community have asked if Omega level threat missions are Marvel's equivalent to raids, but then they never really specify one way or another, right? Like, unless I'm not reading between the lines.
There is a bit of double speak there.
Yeah.
When I mentioned that I'm kind of glad that Substation Zero was downgraded from an operation, cloning labs. Well, I don't know why they keep saying cloning labs in the plural. There seems to be like an implicit implication that there's going to be different variants of the cloning lab. I haven't seen anything in the data to reflect that, but I don't know if maybe that's something they have in the pipeline. But it is a raid in terms of how they classify it internally, but it is not to the scale of the Wakanda raid by a wide margin. It's
so let me,
I don't even know how to. I saw somebody mention actually that it's comparable to Destiny's dungeons.
I was gonna say I was. Are you familiar with like the way Destiny does their raids? Because they have like a raid and then like a raid layer, right? Which a raid layer is like a smaller, kind of more focused experience, whereas a raid has more kind of bosses and kind of a more grand scale to that. Do you feel like that, just kind of off that description, do you feel like that's kind of a more like equivalent description of what we're going to be getting out of the AIM cloning lab and the Wakanda raid? Like, do you feel like that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
that seems fairly apt to me.
Okay.
Just looking at it, yes, the cloning lab is considerably smaller than the Wakanda raid, but this was going to be something that, again, would have come out in September and would not have had to stand on its own for as long as this is going to have to, and people are going to frankly pick it apart. But
Really?
which is what I interpret them to mean when they say, it's our first step in escalating the challenge your superheroes face, is
Right.
that, yes, it's a raid, but don't call it a raid, because when we have a raid, we want you to know what that means and the scale that that represents.
So for kind of the people out there, when they play this, at this point there's no ballpark for the Wakanda raid then, right? Like December, January, like there's no kind of set.
It does seem to be 2021.
2021. Okay. All right.
Yeah,
So
they'll go into that a little more later, but
okay.
Yeah, it's pretty vague. I'm expecting mid-January, late January, possibly early February.
I'm crying on the inside, let me tell you. Future.
I mean, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in for sure.
Oh yeah, and a lot of it so far has kind of been, here's some stuff, but we're kind of delaying some stuff, but here's some more stuff, and it's just like it's very up and down in terms of like my emotions right now, like kind of reading all this, and kind of it's more so like it's sinking in that like a lot of the stuff I was kind of excited for, maybe don't get so high and mighty on it. Like it is going to be a little while longer.
Be very excited for the Wakanda raid. Be very excited.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. That's the kind of raid that you are expecting when you hear the word raid. Yes.
Yes, like the big kind of end game experience that you and your buddies are gonna like look back on and be like, that was amazing, right? Like,
yep, this is like world in peril, crazy boss fight. Oh yeah.
Interesting. Now, do you think content like that is like kind of the content they were teasing about? In I believe his name was Scott Amos, right? When he said there is content that people are going to come back for. Now, would you classify that as something would bring a lot of the community back, especially the PC player base, right? Which is
undoubtedly yes.
Yeah. Okay.
Undoubtedly. I mean, to have that tied also to Black Panther, such a famous character. That I've been saying since September that's going to be a soft launch opportunity for the game, like an opportunity to sort of get eyes back on the game, redo our public opinion, and show everybody, how the game works now.
I mean, I guess that's the biggest thing too, is like, raids have become such a social experience, whether it's through playing with your friends or watching world first like races. Like I definitely believe personally that like a good raid and kind of a good experience around a raid could definitely like not only like re-energize the player base, but re-energize viewers on Twitch, viewers on YouTube, kind of bring more attention. Like I definitely agree with you that if they do it right and they get it all out together, no bugs, everything's kind of clean and packaged nicely, that definitely you could be seeing kind of a renewed interest in the game kind of right there and then, which definitely would be good. I
mean, like Taking Aim, it's a fun story, comes with its own boss. Future Imperfect, fun story, comes with its own boss, each with a new character, maybe not the most popular character, but very distinct characters gameplay wise that will excite a lot of people and sort of show new corners of how the engine works, which is exciting, but certainly nothing to the scale of coming with an entirely new region in Wakanda, a hugely popular character like Black Panther,
right?
The first big scale raid. That's a ton of content to launch all at once, and that's the kind of opportunity that the game will need to sort of get eyes back on it.
Right. Wow. Can I transport to January now?
Let me just say,
yeah, please.
Everybody's there. Like the Dora Milaje is there. You got Okoye. You got Shuri. Like the gang is there. It's huge, and yeah, that's exactly the kind of thing that the game needs.
I got like goosebumps on my arms, man. Let me tell you. Oh, I'm ready, dude. I'm ready to go right to bed and wake up in 2021. Let me tell you. Wow. That, you know what? I can't wait. It's stuff like that. Like hearing you talk about it, like is like stuff that kind of makes me want to jump back into the game like tonight. Like once this is all done, I'm like, I want to go play Avengers tonight, right? Like it's like knowing stuff like that is coming is enough for me to kind of jump back into the game and kind of rededicate myself to the game, because it's like, you know, maybe the game's not in the best state, maybe some of the stuff I don't really necessarily agree with, but I know something really cool is on the horizon, and I want to be a part of it. I want to be there, and I want to be, kind of on that forefront of the community, ready to be like, I'm ready, open arms, give it to me. You know what I mean? And
yeah,
when you talk about like all the stuff that's coming, like how cool it's gonna be, I'm like, I'm in. Buckle in, man. I'm ready to go. So
I mean, at the end of the day, like this is a games as a service game,
yep.
and part of the design philosophy is exciting content in the pipeline that gets people to come back.
Yep.
And with everything pushed back, constantly since launch, it's been tough to sort of put eyes back on that fact, like to really show like, no, there is cool stuff coming, like
Yep.
we promise, even if it's been a bit of a drip feed so far,
Right.
it is coming. And obviously they don't want to promote something that's like 3 updates down the line,
right?
But having the perspective that I have where I can sort of touch it a little bit, I can say, and yeah, if you aren't excited about what's coming, you really should be.
Wonderful.
Like there is very cool stuff in the pipeline. Oh yeah.
All right, I'm sold. Let me go buy 4 copies and give them away. I'm ready. All right. Well, with that being said, let's kind of jump into the blog post section of future Marvel's Avengers content. We kind of have already talked about it. Let's kind of get their word for it. So, moving forward, we intend to have a fixed, predictable patching cycle to ensure all new content meets both our and your high standards and has time for extensive internal testing. We know fans are hungry for new content, but delivering a fun experience is our priority. With this in mind, we decided to push Kate Bishop's Operation launch back a bit out of October. We're sorry for the slight delay, but we are dedicated as a team to quality first. Kate's new operation will be a must-play for fans wanting to know what's next in the story. In Marvel's Avengers, Kate Bishop taking aim, tachyon rifts become a harbinger of a new threat. As players investigate the source of them, they will pick up on a story that begins shortly after the conclusion of the Reassemble campaign. Then comes Clint. We'll have more information on him later. And looking into 2021, our biggest Avengers Initiative edition yet will introduce a new hero, region, and narrative arc. I imagine that is Black Panther, Wakanda, and yep, perfect.
And more.
And more. Wow. We've also made the decision to shift our PlayStation 5 and Xbox S and X launch to next year to ensure that we give our team the time to deliver a next-gen experience showcasing all that this game is meant to be. More details to come. Oh, no.
I mean, getting a look at like the PS5 UI the other day.
Yes.
It's really more than just, a boost in optimization. Like there's a lot of work behind the scenes that has to be done.
Yeah. You're 100% correct. I think it's just a little disappointing because, I'm sure for a lot of people, when you buy a new console and you know that games are going to be kind of moved forward, it would have been so cool, personally, to November 12th, get my PS5, sit down, and Marvel's Avengers, the PS5 experience is right there, ready to go, right? But on the
you can still have the PS 4.5 experience.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. But
yeah, you can still run the PlayStation 4 version, and it will load faster.
Hey, you know what? In a lot of ways, that works for me. Because let me tell you, on my PC, those elevator scenes are, pretty snappy, pretty quick. But
yeah, it cuts them off early on my end.
Yeah, it is sad because you do miss a lot of the dialogue. But on my PS4 version, I get like the dialogue and then some. Like I get the dialogue and then they go out for tea and drink a tea together. You know what I mean? Like
you get to go grab a snack.
Well, that's exactly it. So I guess at the end of the day, if it means kind of with what we've experienced so far, I'm okay with them kind of being forefront about it and being like, hey, listen, guys, we're gonna need some time to kind of work on this to make sure it's good. At this point, I would much rather them kind of take that extra time and deliver a seamless experience than on November 12th, for me to play the PS5 experience of Marvel's Avengers, bugs, crashes, frame drops, or maybe it just doesn't work at all, right? So I know personally I'm okay with that. I would hope that the community at large, kind of gives them that leeway and is like, okay, we look forward to kind of when it's ready kind of situation, right? Because I think you're right in that the PS 4.5 experience is still going to be better than what the PS4 players are getting, right? Like,
right.
there's still going to be,
especially anybody playing on like a launch PS4 right now.
Well,
like, that's going to be a massive difference,
right? Because I'm sure those guys are. I mean, honestly, I don't know how they do it, because even on a PS4 Pro, there's sometimes the game just like is a slideshow, and
yeah,
it's kind of brutal. It's kind of brutal.
Yeah.
So, one of the things I would love to speculate a little bit. Do you feel like the frame rates are going to be like, marginal improvement, or what do you think? Big improvement? What should I be expecting, or what should people be expecting when November 10th and 12th come around and they load in their Marvel's Avengers to their Xbox X or S or the PS5? Do you think it's going to be a huge jump, or do you think it's going to be a small jump depending on which platform you're using?
Well, there's definitely going to be a bottleneck somewhere.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, with the dynamic resolution and frame rate to go along with that,
Yep.
Something will cap.
Yes.
Like, either you're going to be running. I mean, I honestly don't know how high up that dynamic resolution scaler goes on the PS4 and Xbox One versions.
Right.
If it goes up to like a 1440p, I could see a 1440p, 60 FPS. I don't even know how to verbalize that. Yeah, I mean, the game will run well, undoubtedly.
Right.
I mean, the effects are all pared back for the console releases anyways. They're sort of equivalent to, like, I think it's low on Xbox One,
okay,
and medium on Xbox One X and PS4 Pro. But if that's the case, no, you should be relatively pleased.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
It should be pretty consistent with like a middle of the road PC player today.
Okay. All right. Well, I mean, I think for, me personally, that sounds good enough, right? Kind of, it's like a stopgap solution, I guess, right? Is the best way to kind of explain it, right? It's not going to be the greatest thing, but it'll get you there until the actual kind of...
You'll be seeing 60 FPS, like, almost certainly, depending on how high the resolution scaler goes. If it only goes up to 1080p, you will definitely be seeing 1080 60 on the new consoles. Maybe not in every scenario, depending on how many enemies you have on screen, but probably most.
All right, November 12th. Let's go. I'm ready. I am so ready. So, let's kind of...
Well, before we jump on,
yes,
that was the elephant in the room. That was the delay for Kate.
Yeah, I mean, it's good that you brought it, because I was actually just about to go right on through there. Yeah, you know what? You're 100% correct in that. I don't know how much you could talk about or say, but I think a lot of people were expecting her to be ready to go. Like,
I have tweet notifications from people in the last 2 days saying, Kate is coming out this weekend, right? Like, they've been consistent about late October, and I had always interpreted that to mean October 29th, like the last Thursday of October. You don't say late in a month if you mean 2 weeks before the end of the month. You mean the very end of the month.
Would you feel...
And so, if they pushed that back to the beginning of November, that's only 1 week, and that's very consistent with them saying a slight delay.
Now, do you...
You know what I mean? Like, 1 week is not that much.
Do you feel like it will be that first week of November, or do you feel like it will be longer than that?
I would love to think it is.
Okay.
I'm not positive. They did specify during the live stream that it won't be during the Thanksgiving weekend, which is the last weekend of November.
Right.
So, November 19th at the latest.
Okay, there you go. Confirmed.
Yeah.
Wonderful.
That's not that bad. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
If that's a 3-week delay at its worst, it could have been worse.
Now, I'm you know what? I'm trying to figure out in my head what would cause a delay. Now, say for example, if it's a 1 week delay, I mean, anything could throw something off for a week, right? Whether it's Sony, Microsoft patch approval, whether it's Marvel approval, when it starts stretching into like you said, that 3-week period, there's going to be a lot of people questioning, like, what happened? Like, why is it 3 weeks, right? Because, we could sit here and say 3 weeks isn't that long, but to a community that's clamoring for a new character, 3 weeks can be an awful long time, especially when you start getting into new video game season, right? Like,
you're right.
So, I mean, I would love to kind of, they'll never say this, but I would love to know what, if it does go 3 weeks, I'd love to kind of hear why, but that might be something we'll never, ever hear. Because,
well, they did, I think, offhand mention bug fixes.
Yes.
And knowing that Kate teleports as a part of her moveset, I can only imagine how horrendous some of the bugs have been with that mechanic. That's the kind of thing that breaks your game wide open.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's almost like, yeah, it's a good point there. I didn't even think
I
about
mean,
that.
think of it this way:
Mm.
with Iron Man running around in outposts and being able to glitch his way into his signature attack and getting to break out of boundaries, which is a very popular glitch you'll see in videos.
I saw that, yeah.
If you do that with Kate's moveset, yeah, you end up with a lot of people falling through a lot of floors.
Yeah, you can.
Like that.
Well, it's funny you
Yeah.
mentioned that, because the other day I was playing the Tachyon Rift and I just kind of fell through the floor. Like the floor just never loaded, and I just kept falling and falling and falling. I was like, oh, this is cool. So it's, you know what?
Oh,
I didn't even think about that, because like the teleport thing. Like I see the picture, but like in my head I'm not thinking like Kate Bishop and teleporting, right? Like, but it's, yeah, I guess that would definitely be one of those things where it's like, yeah, this could break our game if we don't do this correct, right?
Yeah, she's doing a lot of teleporting. And if you're hopping behind walls accidentally during a mission, yeah, that's the kind of glitch that would destroy the game in the press.
So on the stream today, did they talk about detail of like Kate's skills, or was it just kind of like nothing was said about her at all?
They said nothing,
Okay.
but the PR guy in the chat did mention special arrows.
Interesting. Huh.
Yeah, which I think is kind of a bit of a red herring, frankly. I don't know what exactly they were referring to.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I'll have to pull up my notes, but I think it was Clint that has different status effects in his skill tree for his arrows.
So, are you comfortable saying that Kate and sorry, not Kate and Bishop, Kate and Clint are going to play very different from each other, with like
extremely,
even without the teleport, like kind of the way they're going to, like their attacks and everything, they're going to be very different. Because I guess like one of the big fears of people is that two arrow characters kind of back to back, like there's only so much you can kind of do with them.
Well, there was that whole Echo Fighter rumor that was going around, and of course they do that because, you know, it represents much less work than having to create a new character every month.
Right.
And that's true, but from the get-go, to start with two characters that you would immediately assume work exactly the same, specifically because one trained the other.
Yes.
To have those be so different really sets the stage for, oh no, we are going balls to the wall with this. We are doing exactly what you are not expecting, and please be excited. So yeah, no, Kate and Clint do play extremely differently. I would liken it to Hawkeye being more of a hunter type, and Kate being more of a ranger. So yes, they are shooting arrows, but they have distinct objectives in their gameplay. Clint has traps. Kate has a drone. There's very different objectives in clearing a map with one versus the other.
It's gonna make me so sad when I play tonight and I don't have any of this fun stuff. You know what I mean? Like I'm sitting here listening, and for people who don't know, Miller's Twitter is like one of the best ways to get information, and it's like, excuse for the lack of a better term, but it's like the Avengers blue ball scenario where like you're looking at Miller's Twitter and you're seeing all these cool things come in, and you're just sitting there and you're just like waiting for it, because let me say, like everything like you've teased and talked about like has been like unbelievable, and has been like so, it's exciting, and then it's like, can I have it now? Can I have it now? Can I have it now? It's like kind of when you're like a kid and you know Christmas is coming and you're like just counting down, and it's like the first, the second, the third, and before you know it, it's the 24th. But it feels like you just aged 24 years instead of 24 days. And that's kind of how I feel. I don't know how you feel when you're actually going through the data and you're looking at all this stuff. Because I'm sure for you, it's like firsthand, like, can this just come out now? Like, I want to play it, right?
Well,
like,
it's tough because like there's a lot of stuff further down the pipeline that I'd love to talk about, but specifically the scenario you're talking about where you're excited for content that is continually getting pushed down and down the pipeline.
Yes.
I really don't want to get people hyped for something that's 4 months away.
Right.
You know what I mean?
For sure.
That's such a tease.
At that point, people are gonna, you know, instead of like the goodwill people are gonna give you, they're like, can you not talk about that if it's not coming out soon? You know what I mean?
The only exception that I have for that, because I am such a huge fan of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., is Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. content. So when I see Gemma Simmons in the data, I say Gemma Simmons, and I don't care when she's coming out. Get that fan base hyped, Gemma Simmons.
So, actually, kind of going on the way of Agents of Shield. There, can you talk about Quake or Phil Coulson? Any
I wish.
nothing, eh? No, I can't pull a single thing out of you.
I promise you.
Okay.
It doesn't matter like what I see, where I see it. If I see something for Quake, that is going out there. Like, I could not be more excited for the possibility of Quake.
There was that name thing, like the what I'm missing
the placeholder.
The placeholder, yeah. So it's one of those, like, there's like a tease of like maybe she's coming, maybe she's not, right?
I mean, it's tough because with the game sort of falling at the gates, like launch being kind of a dud,
yes,
in a lot of ways, and the game getting so thoroughly thrashed in the press, I have to imagine that anything after year one has to be back to the drawing board. It has to be like, we need to reconsider how we're doing this moving forward. So I fear the possibility of Quake being canceled effectively as a result of that.
Well,
like everything, all of the characters tied to the audio leaks and War Machine, I can't imagine that stuff gets canceled, because that represents such a significant investment in resources to get to where they are right now in those characters, even, that you wouldn't just scrap it.
Well,
but for characters that are just placeholders,
right?
I mean, that none of them are safe.
Well, let me ask you a question then, because I did read something today where Avengers was like the number 7 selling game in September, I believe. Are you familiar with the headline?
Which region was that? Was that NPD that got those numbers out? Or?
Honestly, I just saw the headline. I'm one of those guys.
I'll Google it.
I'm a headline reader. Let me tell you. And like and kind of the point I was trying to illustrate here is, like, even though the game was trash, I would have to imagine sales might have been pretty good, right? Like, sales might have been to the point where they're like, okay, we're getting trashed for a lot of things, but people still put a lot of money into this game. So
Well, I'm looking right now, and the September 2020 numbers from NPD, which represents North America, Marvel's Avengers is first.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Which is good to see. Very good to see.
Right.
It's tough, though, because Super Mario 3D All-Stars is just below that, and NPD doesn't track digital Nintendo sales, I believe.
Right.
Apparently they do. Oh, that's new.
Oh.
But okay, well, that's promising. I did see somebody earlier talking about sales for the game,
right?
And it seems like they didn't set the world on fire, but sales were
comfortable,
quite strong.
Yeah,
and frankly, they should have been, with all the money that was put into marketing.
Well, yeah,
but yeah, I mean, I have to imagine they've fallen off a cliff since then, and I say that with love.
Yes,
really,
yes.
Like, the game has been so trashed in the public opinion that there can't be copies flying off the shelves right now.
Well, yeah, but I guess I imagine that the kind of the thinking is, you put some love into the game, you do some kind of dig deep a little bit, and the players are there. The people want this game, but right now, obviously, as we all know, there is, the player base is kind of dwindling. It's very evident on Steam, for example, where I believe, what is it, like 1,200 people, 1,500 people on a daily number?
Yeah, it's rebounding now, but it did drop below 1,000, I think. At one point.
That's tough.
Which is extremely bad.
Yeah,
like, there's no way to sugarcoat that. That's awful.
Yeah. Do you feel like,
I mean, if it wasn't a licensed game, that would be bad, but to have it attached to the biggest entertainment IP on the planet right now, that's just, there's no way to sugarcoat that.
Do you find that impacts your matchmaking performance at all? Like, because I know there was discussions around the PC community of, is matchmaking broken, or the player base just too low to kind of satisfy matchmaking? Do you feel like, with the matchmaking currently as it is, do you feel like it would work better? Because I know on PlayStation, I've not really had an issue over the past few weeks, so I
think the biggest issue with matchmaking is the fact that endgame content is single player.
Yes.
That's it.
Yes.
Like, you know what I mean? Like, if I'm jumping on the game, it's because I'm going to do my Elite Heroic Hive for the week, or I'm going to do my Mega Hive run, or I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. And I'm doing that single player most of the time.
Right.
I think once Cloning Lab comes out, I think that'll be the real litmus test for how easy it is to find a group.
So, I'd love to kind of just pull your thoughts on the Cloning Lab, and specifically, Do you feel like that should be all week, or are you okay with it being limited to weekends?
Luckily I don't work weekends, so I don't mind.
Right.
I've seen a lot of people say, some people can't play on weekends, it's not fair,
Mm-hmm.
and I get that. Um, it's tough. You really do have to kind of sacrifice something, because if you make it available all week, there's no rush to do it. And
Right.
with the player base dwindling, to talk about matchmaking problems, you might have a problem finding a group. But if you push it all in the weekends, everybody clamors to do it. You get those numbers to spike back up. Maybe you get a nice headline out of it. It's a tough one.
Would you
But as far as where I stand on it, again, I don't work weekends, so I really don't mind.
would you so for the people who like work weekends such as myself, would you and I'm not one of the ones who are like kind of up in arms about this. For me, it's like, if it is what it is.
Oh no, I mean, I get it.
Yeah, for sure.
That's gotta suck.
Yeah, what I was thinking, like, why don't you do like start it Thursday on reset, like a Thursday reset to like a Monday.
They do.
Is that I thought it was Friday.
No,
It was Friday.
Friday?
It's Friday.
Friday,
Yeah.
Yeah, Friday reset until, Friday at 1 o'clock our time.
Yes.
To Monday,
Yeah.
1 o'clock our time.
Yeah.
So you got the 72 hours.
Right. Yeah, it's weird that they don't start it on reset just when everything else starts on reset. Like, and maybe it might not be much, but those extra 24 hours could be the difference between someone running and someone not running it, for example, right? So maybe with enough push, that could be something they change.
I mean, if they see enough backlash for it, I have to imagine they're in flux. Like, it seems like they really are making an effort to take their player base's opinions into account.
Yep.
So if enough people do fight back against that, yeah, I could see them shifting it. I think the biggest obstacle to that is just the caliber of loot associated with that event. To have that there all weekend, I think they would kind of have to pare that down a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, to only have a couple days to run that a week, that does sort of create an obstacle between players getting decked out with all of that gear on all of their players in 2 weeks, and then revolting because they're done the content.
There's no content to run anymore. Exactly. Yeah. It's always the balancing act that you have to play, right? Like, some people and the unfortunate thing is with a game like this, you're always going to upset somebody. You go in with the best intentions, but someone, and you're going to try your best, but someone is going to have a situation or a circumstance that just means, like, unfortunately, they're going to kind of be upset about it. So yeah, definitely not going into game design, that's for sure.
It's tough. It's tough. There's a lot of people to make happy, and you really can't get all of them in one go.
Yeah, for sure. All right, so with that being said, let's get to the last little bit here, which is more than a game. I'd like to end this State of the Game update with a heartfelt note to you, our fans. Reflecting on this past year and the isolating global climate that has come with it, superhero stories feel more important than ever. On an individual level, superheroes inspire us to dig deep and get back up after being knocked down. From a societal perspective, they illustrate how our differences enrich communities, big and small. In our nearly 30-year history, Crystal Dynamics has never shipped a game under conditions like these. From working at home to avoid a pandemic, to some of us evacuating said homes to stay safe from wildfires. While the challenges 2020 has surfaced are many, it's also instilled a strength in us to reassemble a team divided by geography and life circumstances and come back stronger, united by a mission to do right by you. This is, in part, why we have taken our responsibility developing Marvel's Avengers so seriously. It's our opportunity to pass on that core hero's spirit of heart and hope, connect you with your friends near and far, and inspire you to plant your feet against the sea of adversity and say, no, you move. Marvel's Avengers is far more than a game to us, and you are far more than its players. You are our superheroes. We may be apart, but we are all in this together. Crystal Dynamics head of studios, Scott Amos. I mean, that's a very, and you know what? Like, I'm a sucker for things like these. I love, like, kind of like when people break away from corporate speak and kind of just reach out on like a human to human level and kind of say, like, listen, guys, like, it's not been good, but if you stand by us, we're going to stand by you, and we're going to get through this together, right? And, like, for me, when someone reaches out like that and says, like, listen, shit sucks, but we're going to get through it. It's going to be better, I'm inclined to kind of be like, all right, you know what, dude? where's my wallet? I'm gonna go buy a skin. You know what I mean? Because like, I want to support these guys. You know, like it's kind of why we all play a game and devote our time to the games, because I would like to think many of us just want the game to succeed. But when you kind of read that, what's kind of the impression you take from it? Versus like his Kotaku statement last week, versus this one this week. It to me it feels like there's a little difference of like how he's approaching it.
Well, it was really well constructed.
Mm-hmm.
Just looking at how it's bookended with both, a story of personal ties to their design philosophy and the sort of struggles the team has faced at the end, and then at the beginning with thank you, here's this welcome pack,
Yep.
Thanks for sticking with us. We know it hasn't been fun.
Right.
In that sense, to sort of sandwich Kate Bishop's delay and some of the sour news, to sandwich it with something so heartfelt has been it was a good read. It was a good read.
Yep.
Specifically, what stood out to me was the mention that some of the devs have had their homes taken by wildfires.
Yeah, that
was sobering, really, to hear, because even during the stream today, I know I forget his exact job title, but Adam Wong on the Crystal team, he's based in California. It makes sense that that team has been affected and displaced by the wildfires.
Yep.
And especially to have that, in the times we find ourselves in, I can't even imagine.
It kind of puts everything into perspective, right? Like we can get upset at a video game and we can say like, I don't agree with this change, but at the end of the day, there are real people making these changes and real people working these jobs, and those real people are affected by circumstances that we can't even imagine half the time, right? Like I personally, I couldn't imagine having my home, like having to evacuate my home in a pandemic. Like those two circumstances separate are wild for me to even think about, but then when you combine them, I'm like, wow, like I don't know how I would do it, so I mean 100%, like it's one of those things where it definitely puts everything into perspective. Like it's just the game, and we love it, we hate it, we want to play, we want to support it, but at the end of the day, there's some real human beings behind the game itself, and whether you like the game or not, we gotta at least be civil and understanding and hope for the best, right? Like if there's 1 year,
and it really wasn't just development either. Like the tie-in book got pushed back in North America.
I remember that, yeah,
because there was issues with the publisher. Like it's affected every industry.
Yeah.
And I mean, if you look at the real winners during the period of COVID-19 that we found ourselves in, Animal Crossing did fantastically.
Yep.
Well beyond anybody's expectations. But when that launched, there was a real dearth of content.
Yep.
Like it took a long time for there to be, real tangible content pushes. So it doesn't surprise me that, we've seen such a drought post-launch with this game in terms of content. All of gaming has felt that.
Yeah.
I mean, you as a Destiny player, I'm sure you've been a little bit affected as well by some of the delays. It's been tough.
Yeah, no, and you know what, I even thought at one point, my PS5 was not coming this year. Like in general, I thought the consoles were going to be delayed. I thought the new Nvidia cards were going to be delayed. Like in my head, I was thinking this year is just going to have nothing. I thought everything was going to be delayed. And to be fair, the consoles are launching, and we could almost go into a separate conversation about the new Nvidia cards and their launch and how poor that was. But everything's just kind of being affected, and I think at this point it's just a matter of, it's not a matter of is this going to be affected, but it's a matter of how much is this going to be affected. Like it's not a matter of a zero, it's a matter of is it 10%, 20%, 30%, 40%, like. And I think that's like the sobering thought about all this is like we can clamor and want new content and kind of, but at the end of the day, you're a victim to your own pipeline. If your pipeline's being affected, there's nothing you can do about it, right?
And specifically having such a huge IP where you have people from Marvel that want to bite, you want people from Disney that want to bite, like that just creates even more of a delay to get everything out there.
Yep.
You know what I mean? There's just that many more companies that themselves have been affected.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's it was sobering to read. It was really sobering.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. All right. Well, with that being said, guys, I think that is it for the State of the Game blog. Miller, I will give you the floor. If there's anything you would like to say to the community at large, please kind of tell everyone where to follow you, and please, floor is yours.
Great. So once again, I am Miller. Yeah, I don't have a title. I'm just some guy on Twitter. You may have heard of me. For anybody who is listening to this from a link on my Twitter, do follow the Assemble podcast. They're the only one of their kind covering the game constantly, and it's been really great to see this specific corner of the community evolve. And to the community, thank you guys so much for being so warm to me. In the same way that the team has been affected by COVID-19, we have as well, I have as well. And to have this sort of solace from everything has been just incredible. And thank you guys so much for welcoming me.
Oh, I should have let you go last. I can't follow that up. Oh my god. So once again, guys, if you guys are new to the channel, if you guys are not new to the channel, yes, please.
And follow me on Twitter.
Yeah, please.
Miller with 8 M's.
Yes, please. If you guys don't follow Miller on Twitter, you guys are going to be missing out on some of the best Marvel content out there, 100%. With that being said, guys, if you are new to the channel and you like what you see, hit the subscribe button. If you guys are not new to the channel, you guys know what I'm all about. I stream on Twitch TV, twitch.tv/HighRuler. Otherwise, you guys can find me on this channel, Assemble Podcast, 3-4 times a week, maybe, pushing out news, patch notes, blogs, all sorts of stuff going on every week. So with that being said, guys, once again, special thank you to Miller for joining me this evening and covering the State of the Game blog. Big fan of his personally. So Miller, thank you so much for kind of joining me tonight and covering this with me.
Welcome.
It was such a fun time, man. I really do appreciate it.
Yeah, we'll have to do this again.
Oh, 100%, 100%. And with that being said, guys, thank you so much for watching the video. I look forward to seeing you guys next time. Enjoy, stay safe, and take it easy. Peace.